Hello, everybody. Welcome to The Expendable Show. I'm your host, The Expendable. Today, we have a special guest in the studio, my dear friend and TV host, TV personality, 1,500 Emmy Awards for her performances on TV, Jennylyn Gleave. Thanks for coming on my show, Jennylyn.
Thank you for having me. It's always fun to do anything with you, Eric.
I try to make it fun.
Well,
Did you really
you're
win
very
1,500 Emmys?
successful.
Yeah, that's what we want to do. We want to have fun and maybe learn a couple things here and there between all the shenanigans and all that. So today I'm excited because Jennylyn's here. She's going to be on my show and we're doing it right now. And so for those of you who don't know, that don't follow, me and Jennylyn have already started. We have a friendship and it's exciting. We have and it was random. Like Jennylyn, how did our friendship start?
I've been a television producer for 15 plus, going on 16 years. And I was doing a very unique series, very different from anything I've done in the past. Because most of what I've done in the past is interview like tech people, people who run the world and different aspects of that. And then I started this series based on an experience I was having. And one morning I was scrolling through TikTok and your video showed up in my feed. And I'm like, what's that he's saying? So I stopped and I listened. And what you were saying, I can't remember exactly which segment it was, but it resonated with me. So I clicked on your profile and I started going down your videos. And while I was doing that, I heard a voice tell me, write to him and ask him to come on your show. And I'm like, what? Because so many people show up in my feed. I couldn't quite figure out why you, but I have a tendency now of obeying that voice because in the past, when I've ignored it, I paid the price. So I said, all right, I'm going to write to him. And if he responds, then I guess this has a divine attachment to it. This is a divine order. And so I wrote to you, and surprisingly, you wrote back, you answered me, but I have a lot of men, weird random men, that will just say hi, beautiful, and you can tell they're weird and they're kind of sketchy. So I wanted to check you out. I sent you to Mel to vet you. I'm like, Mel, I was scrolling on TikTok. This guy was brought to my attention. I was told to write to him. I have written to him and he has responded. What kind of feelings are you getting? Because I think he may be connected to what we are dealing with. And I swear to you, in less than 10 seconds, I get a reply. I see Archangel Michael on his shoulder or something like that. And I go, okay, great. And the rest is history.
So for those of you who don't know, she referenced a Mel. So Mel is also our friend in our little like trio. And she is a medium / she channels messages from the spirit world. So she's a phenomenal person too. I love Mel. And, we have the Fellowship of the Rings. Yeah. So that's what we do.
Threesome. It sounded kind of corny, so I'm glad you. I'm glad you qualified. Yeah.
Okay. How about 3 friends that solve the world problems?
Yeah. Perfect.
Okay, that
works better.
So as Jennylyn said, and I know because we've talked about a lot of her professional ventures, since I've been getting to know her over the time that since I don't know how long it's been now, 3-4 months or something like that.
Yeah.
But and we've done I don't know how many shows now together.
Too much to count.
Too much to count. I feel like I'm on TV all the time now.
Yeah, you're a
But
TV star, Eric. You're just not giving yourself your titles. So I'm giving it to you.
right, don't tell my assistant that, because I tell her I'm famous all the time, and she keeps telling me I'm just I'm a D level celebrity. I'm trying to like level up to like C list, and maybe I'll get to like B with like Michael Baldwin or Stephen Baldwin, like one of the Baldwins. I can get up there with them. So that's what I'm trying to do. But we've talked about your, you know, your history, and you were in the television industry, right?
Yeah,
And
I grew up. Sorry.
no, go ahead. Just tell us a little bit about how you got into the industry, and you know, what all you got into in that industry.
So I grew up in a very remote part of South America, in a country called Guyana, on the border of Venezuela and Guyana. So not much happened there. Population of maybe 500 total,
Wow.
completely cut off from the world. You had to go down the Pacific Ocean, either the Pacific or the Atlantic, to find other life. So, and I was raised by a really strict father, so very protected. And everything I did through my high school. So every possible program that they offered, I did it. I was the high jump champion. I won the poetry contest. I'm a very driven person and I get bored easily. So once I've mastered something, then I'm ready for the next challenge. And so when I was about 10, all of the schools in the area, in the country, had a competition, a drama competition. And if you won at your school level, then you were taken to the city to compete with the other schools in the country. And I won the competition. I dramatized a poem called Banana Man, where they dressed me up like a man. They stuck my hair in a hat, and I came on stage with a bunch of bananas and actually dramatized the poem, and I won. And so that sort of catapulted me into theater. And so I was a theater actress in Guyana for most of my life. And then when I left Guyana, wherever I lived, I found a theater and I joined. But I came to the United States in marriage to a dentist from San Francisco. And everything I tried to do, he gave me a reason why I couldn't do it. And I would think that it contributed to the demise of our marriage because you can't cage a bird. And that's what he tried to do to me. So I tried to join a theater there, and he said my accent would prevent me getting accepted for any roles. And then about 12 years later, my drama teacher, who trained me from a very young age and stage of my life, found me on Facebook. And he goes, "Tell me you're in a theater in San Francisco." And I said, "No, they won't cast me because I have an accent." He goes, "I don't want to hear that nonsense. I know your abilities. I'm giving you an assignment to find a theater near your home and go audition." And that's how I wound up doing television. As I was going there, I met this woman and I write poetry. And she told me, "Someone told me you write poetry and I'd like to invite you on my show to talk about it." And so I went to her show. I was on the show, and at the end of the show, the guys in the theater said, and the TV station told me, "You are great and a natural on television. You need to do your own show." So instead of going to theater, I rerouted my interest and my energies and endeavors toward television. And so I took classes every Wednesday night for 2 years. I learned everything in television production. Then, for 1 year, every night that I could, I volunteered on someone's show, in some other aspect of television production. And then when I felt good and comfortable, I launched my own show February the 11th, 2019. Yeah, is it? Yeah, wait. Yeah, 2911. 2911, I launched my own show. And the rest is history. I've since interviewed the co-founder of Oracle, the co-founder of Apple, Amazon's first scientists, China's top plastic surgeon. I've interviewed an archbishop. I've interviewed judges, lawyers. I mean, name it, I've traveled and done it. It's only after COVID threw a wrench in my actual television production in a studio, because I learned I could do it on Zoom. And now that's what I do, because I relocated from San Francisco. And the TV station where I produced my show was on one of the Google campuses. It was called KMVT. And every now and then I still stream content back to them, and they still play it on air. So that's it in a nutshell.
I mean, that's pretty cool. You were talking about some of the people that you interviewed, and you talked about, and you didn't name any names, but you interviewed Steve Wozniak, right?
Yes, I did. And he's actually a friend.
So you are friends with Steve Wozniak.
He's in my Facebook. He's on my LinkedIn. Yeah, and I used to have dinner with him at least one Monday night every 3 months. Not just him and I in a group, but I did, and he knows who I am.
So how is he as brilliant as what you would think he is?
He is one of the most fascinating people I have ever met. We both know that Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak started Apple, but right. Steve Wozniak was the brain behind Apple. He made his first chipboard when he was 9 years old, and he afforded the bits and pieces to make it by delivering newspapers and cutting people's lawns. You should go watch it. It's on my website, that interview. And at 9 years old, he built his first chipboard. And what I love about him is he's a very humble person. And when he would meet us on a Monday night for dinner, he got there before everyone and he ate, so that when we showed up, he could just hang out and chat with us. And if there were people in the restaurant who recognized him and came over and asked for a signature on their products or whatever, he always signed it. And I still have his business card. It's the most unusual business card you will ever see. It's made out of silver metal. It's not even made out of paper. I'll send you a picture of it later.
That would be cool. I would expect nothing less than the most outlandish thing coming from Steve Wozniak. But he seems brilliant. Yeah, I've watched a small clip of that video. I need to go back and watch it all. But I thought that he thinks so well, like he can just process information so fast. And he almost seems like he is a computer himself.
Yes, exactly. So he was probably one of the first people I interviewed when I started. Don't ask me how I pulled that off. And by the way, I produce, host everything in my show. I've never had people work on the show. I have a TV crew in the studio of usually maybe 9 to 12 people. But the actual getting the guest, I did that all myself. I went and got them by myself. And I remember I was so nervous because I wasn't sure if he would show up for the interview. And then I had 25 questions. And it was my interview with him that taught me my interview style. I am not good with a list of questions because I had 25 questions for him and I barely got to ask him 5. But he did give me one plug. There's one question I asked him, And he said he had never been asked that question before. And that was huge for me because I relaxed then and actually ended up enjoying the interview. But before I was very nervous and I didn't feel like it flowed the way I wanted it to.
That is kind of a big one to have as one of your first interviews. I would probably completely butcher that for sure.
And by the way, I want to tell you and your guest, my very first television show ever, I interviewed two nuns, and I call them the rock and roll nuns because they used to go to discos and play guitar and try to keep kids from drugs and stuff. And my first TV show was nominated for an award. And out of 500 entries, I was the first runner up. I have the certificate on my wall.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
So, but I didn't feel like it was a new thing because I had been in the studio working on other people's shows and I had done some interviews for the television station. I used to interview guests for the station periodically. So I did have some experience plus the training so that I didn't feel completely out there when I started my show.
Right. See, now we have two different styles of how we do things, Jennylyn. And I think we think a lot of the same way, but our approaches are different.
Right.
So I can never pull politicians. I approach them all the time. They'll talk to me off record all day long, but they will not take interviews from me. I think they are terrified that I'm going to put them on the spot. And I wouldn't do that to them because I don't want my show to be a hostile show. But at the same time, I do expect them to give me direct answers. So I do run into
why. Can I tell you why I think they don't want you to interview them?
Why?
You may be a new producer, but you have a reputation, Eric, and you have written a book called The Swiss Effect. And when you are on the radar, certain people avoid you.
Oh, they avoid me like the plague. It's fine, though. I'd rather be the bad guy.
You're not the bad guy because you're bearing the facts that people would rather keep hidden or people are afraid to speak of.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, they think I'm the bad guy. So that works for me. I couldn't even interview my cousin. He's a mayor. Like, come on, man, we're related. I'm not going to throw you under the bus. No. He's like, no, I know you too well. I said, fine.
I think my problem, and you probably have the same problem, is I don't care about being popular. I don't care about being liked. I just want more people to speak the truth. Right. I want less people to preach propaganda just to protect their high knees. At the end of the day, I have to look my face in the mirror. And I want to like the person looking back at me. And if I'm contributing to what I know is deceiving and misleading, then I can't do that.
Right. And that's going to kind of lead into where I want to go with our talk today, Jennylyn. Because you are a very straight shooter, and you come up with some very reasonable, from our talks, you're very rational and reasonable about what you see and what makes sense to what normal people would think about certain topics out there. And, just like going into the new administration, we have a new president, we have new policies, and we're seeing all these policies play out, and it's happening very rapidly. And there are a lot of people that are uncomfortable with that. And so when people are uncomfortable, then they start to over theorize, and that's going to cause more confusion, and you're going to have misinformation, and people aren't going to know what's real and what's not real. So for people like you to be out there to say, no, this is just slow down our train of thoughts. And let's just look at, okay, what do we know as fact and what do we know as possibility? And how can we, look at the possibility from a few different angles to maybe increase the percentage of your theory to be correct. So I'm not a gambling man, but I do like to make my percentage of potential correction to be as high as possible. So I want to be closer to 80% accurate with my theory. I want to be 100% accurate with the facts that I have, obviously. So I think that's a key element when we're reporting. My dad always tells me, he says, don't report it unless you have at least 2 sources. So that's kind of my rule of thumb. And, my dad doesn't have a background in anything remotely like that, but he instills in me that you shouldn't speak on it unless you have at least 2 different sources to back up what you're talking about. So I try to do it that way. And, most of the time that works out for me. But for us in our conversation, I want to talk about, so Trump has this big deportation policy, and I'm seeing, as we know, Donald Trump basically won his presidency off of his immigration plan. It was one of the top 2 topics that voters wanted answers on. So, as we know, ICE has been running around, and it seems like they're sticking to the immigrants that have criminal records, the ones that are here illegally that have criminal records. And we've seen several of those arrests on TV. So I think that's a pretty accurate statement to make. Do you have any thoughts on how you perceive Trump's immigration policy going so far?
Well, I have been watching some of it, and sometimes I have to turn it off, to tell you the truth. And here is why. I am aware that over the last 2 years, the previous administration just feels like they allowed people to willy-nilly meander their way into our country. That perplexed me and remains a perplexing conversation that I've never gotten a straight answer for. Why was
Correct.
this allowed? What was the point of just allowing? It's like opening the gate and just allowing any old animal to come prancing in. And I'm not calling these people animals. I'm just making an illustration to make my point. And so here we are with these people we know nothing about coming across the borders. And yet, I know of married couples that have been separated to where they got divorced because they waited so long to get the necessary paperwork so they can live united as a couple, because the immigration process has thrown a wrench in their marriage because it's taking so long for them to bring their partner. And then we look and we see people just crawling across the border. So I even suggested to some of them to tell their loved ones to go and come across the border with the people just walking in, because the whole point is to come in. So I do agree we need to deport those people. I am aware that lots of people are living in the United States illegally. And so for me, we need to have a system on how we deport. I would think, if you're asking my opinion, so I'm giving it. If I had to do the deportation, I would have a system of doing it. Or maybe they do and I just don't know. But what I would do is investigate the people who are living here illegally. And if they've been upstanding citizens, allow them the possibility of legalizing their existence here so that they bear the responsibility of every other person living here as a registered person, either a citizen or whatever. But what I struggle with is a family who's been living here forever and they're working
Right.
hard, they're doing their part, and then we're going to disrupt these families and throw them out. So when it comes to immigration and the deportation, that's my feeling. But I think everyone who just walked across the border needs to be sent back, only because a lot of what we've heard coming out of these people haven't been good. And we don't want people here to threaten our safety and our existence, because we have enough people living here doing that sometimes. Did I lose you? Is everything okay, Eric? Eric.
Yeah, I have yeah, so we have like a small amount of interference here,
I noticed.
which hardly ever
You were
happens.
freezing. Have you ever had that happen before?
Yeah, it's kind of odd.
No, it's not odd. It's you and I.
All right, hold on. All right.
What was that all about?
Sarge says you're fine, Jennylyn. Yeah, I'm not real sure what is happening. I've got all my internet's checking out good.
Oh, you know exactly what is happening,
Very
Eric.
odd. I never.
You are speaking to Jennylyn.
Yeah, I know what's happening. Yeah,
Some parts
yeah,
of
they
the
don't like my
universe,
interview today, I don't think.
some parts of the universe are not liking you and I communicating.
Huh, that's very interesting.
What time is it?
So they're telling me. Let me try something real quick. Huh. Okay.
That's very, very interesting.
Huh. Why is this not working? All right. I think I might be back now.
But why do
Maybe.
you think that happened?
I cannot. I can't figure it out. I've got everything is running how it's supposed to.
I think you know what happened.
Wow.
I think you know exactly what happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
How
I
dare
think I
you
do too.
implicate Jennylyn?
Feds. I don't. I'm gonna try something real quick. All right, I'm gonna try that.
I don't see you.
Okay, so I'm gonna change my camera because one of my guys who's really smart with stuff, he just told me that it might be my camera buffering too much. So I switched off into my PC camera. Maybe that will solve the problem. But it doesn't seem to have because Jennylyn's still frozen on my screen.
I am not frozen. Oh, on your screen. Yeah, we have interference.
See, now it's weird. Now I can see you. Do this again. All right. How's that?
I can see you.
All right. I think we're in business. I just hate this camera because it's so close to me. Okay. All right. So Sarge says I have a memory issue going on. I'm going to have to go in my laptop and start cleaning stuff out, apparently. Okay. Well, geez, I'm Pete.
You should get
This is like the first time. Yeah, I know. That's what I need to do. Wow. How disappointing. I'm disappointed. My internet is just not cooperating with me today. Thank you, whoever that is. So just to continue on, and luckily we got plenty of time. So you lived in San Francisco. How long did you live there?
37 years.
So you know
the
San Francisco
majority of my life, yeah.
Right. So you know San Francisco, you know the coastline.
Yeah, I know San Francisco very well.
Right. So what do you think about the wildfires going on? In your non-normal theorizing way of putting it.
Eric, I shoot from the hip.
You're right. You're right.
Always. And I tell my truth. And there is my truth and the truth. And usually I try to mirror them. So before I form a conclusion, I do a lot of research because I agree with your father. If you're going to be a journalist, your reputation is critical. Because if people find you reporting erroneous information, you're going to lose your followers. So you want to be careful that what you're saying, you have vetted it from more than one source. What I think of those fires, because I can't answer you honestly, I'm going to say in California, you have wildfires and then you have fires. Correct. If you're referring to the fire that is burning in Los Angeles, which is not the same place as San Francisco.
Right.
I'm going to say this because I don't want to be another propagandist on the media playing field, just reporting stuff because it's the popular opinion. My humble opinion, based on my research, is that's not a wildfire. I followed the fire in Maui, like I was obsessed with it, because that voice inside of me, which never lies to me, was telling me something was off with that fire. And when I made a list of what happened in Los Angeles and what I saw in Maui, they resembled too much. There were too many similarities for me to call this fire a wildfire. And that's all I'm going to say because I have enough eyes on me.
Right. So I want to get into the more tech, like for me looking at it, I try to look at what are tangible things that we can look at with this. And I keep going back to when Trump was in office, the first time, and he went out to California, he said, you guys need to clean up all this like dry brush that's all over the place. And they never did it.
And can I speak to you as a person from California? We had a good laugh at that. And I've never really been a Trumpster. And I don't dislike people just because of a political reason. And I'm not saying I dislike him. But if you've lived in California, you can't clean that up. That's jungle. That's just abandoned. How would you? This is why we laughed about it. It's not like he was referring to the inner cities. We're talking about, you've heard of Yosemite National Forest. There are lots of areas in California that's kind of abandoned, and that's where the fires that start naturally begin, because it gets so hot and there is so much dry foliage that that usually will ignite the fires, because sometimes you have summer lightning storms, and a few
Right.
times those have caused fires. But we're talking about, that's where he wanted us to go and clean. So even for me, that was a joke, because it's not humanly possible to do that.
Hmm. So my next question for you is there a water issue? I know Trump has talked about that freshwater reserve or whatever that's flowing out to the Pacific Ocean. Is that something that can be rerouted that could nourish the area?
Well, before I left California, we had many years of drought, and San Francisco provides water for Los Angeles, as far as I know, and a lot of it comes from the snow and the different um, reservoirs in California. We supply Los Angeles water. Maybe not all of it, but I know they do get water from us.
Right.
Now, what you were saying just now would be possible if every year we were able to capture enough water. But what had happened, we had maybe 5 years of drought where we got so little rain that we couldn't replenish loss. And it was so bad that they literally sent a message home, a letter home to all of the residents saying, when you use the bathroom, and it stuck in my head because I saw it so often. If it's yellow, let it mellow. If it's brown, flush it down. So that's how bad. I'm not kidding. That's how bad the water situation was in California, at least 5 years ago. I've heard that they've had a lot of water, a lot of rain, and so that situation has improved. But I cannot speak to the water situation in Los Angeles. I know they get water from San Francisco, but I don't know what other areas they get water from.
Right. Okay. Well, that makes sense because it just didn't quite resonate with me. It didn't quite add up the way I wanted it to, I don't think. So it's kind of something I'm trying to figure out on the fly, that why is there not, I mean, how can you be that close to an ocean and you can't convert salt water over into fresh water
That I can't answer. To me, that is such a logical solution to all the water problems. And I have heard many, many Californian residents over the years of living there making that suggestion. But here's one thing I've learned about our government, and I watch them silently but keenly. If
Yeah,
I
and
have an agenda to do something, and I know that if I put things in place to stop that something on my agenda, I'm not going to do it, because then I wouldn't
right,
accomplish the goals that I have
right,
set for me. I have to make sure that I allow my agenda to unfold. And that's all I'm going to say on that.
right. So I mean, I could understand if they would say, the price tag on that, you know, delusion system is going to be your disillusion system, whatever you want to call it. I don't know what they call it, but that system would be
But we
really
find money
expensive.
to fight wars that don't benefit us. I don't understand.
Well, they can justify that with the gobbledygook that they use all the time. But to do something for American humans, that's a whole other. Well, I don't know if we can afford that. That's not really something
This
that's
is
in
why I avoid the political arena, because what I know can get me killed. So I have
yeah,
to temper what I say.
right. It doesn't make any sense to me, in my personal opinion. The way that they prioritize funds, it just doesn't make sense. And I thought Donald Trump, when he went to Los Angeles and they had that little meeting with the emergency people and with the mayor, Karen Bass, which she's made a very massive mockery of herself, I think. But she was talking about everything in her power to delay this whole process. And she was talking, well, it's going to take 18 months to do this and do that. And Trump's going, no, this needs to start tomorrow. What are we waiting on? Why is this taking so long? You have emergency powers just like I do. Use them. And she was like, I am using them. He's like, no, you're not. So
sounds just like Maui. Sounds just
it does.
Like Maui.
So Maui is eerily similar to this. And even when I see the fires on TV and the aftermath of when the fire kind of burns out, I feel like I'm looking at Maui all over again.
Thank you. And all the blue things are still standing. And all the neighboring roofs are painted blue. Sometimes knowledge is not power. It's a burden.
Right. I mean, it definitely is. And I just, man, especially the cars, when you see how the cars burn, and then you compare from Maui, and then you compare them to how the cars burn in Los Angeles, they burn the exact same. I don't know if it's just because that's how fire affects cars, or it just looks like violent fire. Like I've never seen fire look that violent.
Los Angeles, where it's like one of the most popular cities in the United States. Right. It's where Hollywood is. It's where all the movies and the music. Why would you have fire hydrants in your downtown areas turned off?
That makes zero sense.
I mean, seriously, people see what they want to see. People choose to believe whatever the status quo is feeding them. Me, if the dots don't connect, if it isn't gelling, then I don't accept it. And I go and investigate for myself.
Right. So I compare it to, my normal work. So if I don't have water going through my sprinkler system at work and OSHA shows up, I'm going to get a huge, serious fine. How can they not have water going through their hydrant system
that nobody's answering? There are quite a few, actually. There are quite a few questions with no answers. And you know what's frustrating for me is, I was on this Pakistani station yesterday, and I was talking to him afterwards, and they're even wondering how a place like Los Angeles would have fire hydrants without water. And there's so many other things that are just not adding up. And you know what, Eric? You're very calm about it. And I'm not saying you shouldn't be, but I have this internal turmoil that's just driving me insane. And so the way I handle that is I just don't watch any of it. I just shut down, because knowledge is power, but knowledge is also troubling. When you know stuff that you know and you can't do anything about it. But the worst part is the fact that people think we are such idiots, that we can't see the writing on the wall. And then we are shadow banned, we are gang stalked if we are speaking up. Anytime you're speaking the truth, you're not popular. And that's how I know who's telling the truth, because they're being gang stalked. When someone's account is being pulled down and that person is being gang stalked and threatened, you know that is a person that is sharing what needs to be hidden.
Oh, without a doubt. It's an easy tell, especially on social media. You can pretty much figure it out. You can pretty much figure out real quick who's making traction that is anti the establishment agenda, just by who's getting attacked the most. But did you see the clip of when Trump landed in California
I
when
don't
Gavin
watch
Newsom?
any of it. I don't, because when I watch it, I see things, and because I'm overly tuned in, as you know,
Right, right,
I know things. I just know, and I can't do anything about it, and it infuriates me because I am not elite. I am not filthy rich. I don't want to be. I am a humanitarian, and I represent humans, the average human, because I'm going to dare say this: the elite of the world, they have placed themselves in a hierarchy that we don't belong in. And it's very clear in the way
right,
things are done. And that's fine. I'd rather be down here with us because I don't want to be up there with that. But you do you and let us do us, but we work and we pay so we can live, and we should be allowed that and not deprived, dumbed down, and try to silence and make to feel foolish. And that's why
right,
I shut it all off. Because that's the feeling I get when I open my eyes.
right, right.
And these two things.
So where are you at on the AI system then?
Eric, you're trying to get me killed, right?
I mean, you can either look at it as is this do you think this that AI is good? Is the
I think it has good, but most of these things start off being good. But I believe a very large aspect of it is designed to monitor, control,
right,
and other things that are not in our best interest.
right. I agree with you on that. I think that it can that this could there are probably going to be a lot of positive things that AI is going to be able to do. Um, but I do worry about where's the long-term direction going to go. Where mainly because I don't believe that we have enough laws and regulations and guardrails in place for the AI system. That worries me. And now that it's just coming out and being reported that China's already beat us to the punch, so they say.
No, it's
Um,
true. I did the research. They have, and theirs
so
is
that
free, and theirs is free. It's for
right.
everyone.
So now what does that do? What does that do for us in our AI pursuit? Because China's obviously undercut us now. And because chat, they were going to charge a subscription fee, right, for Chat GPT.
China,
And
everything is free.
yeah, so that's going to be hard for America to compete with.
Listen, if you look around America, there's nothing that's for free. We go to
Right.
work, we pay taxes, we pay money for when we retire. And when we get that money, you have to pay taxes on it. And if you get a gift, you have to pay taxes on the gift. And then you have to pay taxes on the taxes that you pay on the gift. You know what I mean? It's like the people in China, when TikTok went down, a lot of Americans went to their red note.
Right.
What they're saying is they're astonished to see what a superior lifestyle Chinese have compared to us. And yet, we've all lived with this. Not me, I've been to China many times, and I've always come back and said Chinese have a superior lifestyle and they're way advanced. And I've been to many parts of China. And so I can just tell you that there is a reason why we are played against each other, if our skin color is different, if our philosophies are different, and which is why we are made to fear some people in other countries. And this is what infuriates me more than ever. But you see how God works? A lot of Americans went to this red dot, and now they're going, wait, we love Chinese. We've made so many friends. So,
Yeah, I did hear that a lot of people had positive reactions to Red Note.
red nose.
Me personally, I didn't do it because I'm too lazy to go
I
redo
did it.
everything.
I did it and I was laughing at the reaction of the Chinese. They were really accommodating, very sweet. And I think lots of really great friendships has been established. So I love it when those are in control try to control us, and then we go off and do our own thing, and the whole program backfires. Because at the end of the day, you know what? We're all God's children. Whether we live in
Right.
China or we live in Russia or we live wherever, the control, the brainwashing, the propaganda needs to stop. And the world needs to unite because that's what God wants. And nobody's better than anyone. And the skin color and all the crap that we've been programmed to believe, and these people don't like us, and those, it's all designed to enable the control. And Eric, this is why I don't do politics, because the stuff oozes out of my pores. It infuriates me
Right.
so much.
So we are getting close to being at the end of our time. So I highly agree with you. And you brought up a good point that somebody in the gallery also brought up a good point. So I want to touch on that before we're done. So Sarge, one of my loyalist, United States Air Force, he brought up a good point. He said, is it the difference between people or the ideology? And I believe it is the ideology. People are people. It just depends on what your leadership feeds you, what your media feeds you. You are what you're fed. So it's going to be up to you as an individual whether you absorb what you're being fed, or if you go look, well, maybe there's another meal over here, and you go look over here and say, well, it's a little bit different over here, and this matches my belief system. This ideology is a little bit better for me as opposed to this ideology. So I believe it is, Sarge, to answer your question, I believe it is the ideology. It's not the people. The people relatively are the same. You can just take the different flavors of skin tone out of everybody, and it's when it comes down to it, it's the ideology. So I really wanted to touch on that because it's a good thing, that it's a good question to ask. And I
Can I
think,
add something to that, Eric?
yeah, yes, you can, Jennylyn.
So the ideology doesn't matter if you divide the people and they can't even communicate, because how then would they know the ideology?
Right. Well, if you're in a country, let's say England, where they want you to only follow one ideology, and they cut you off from any outside influencing ideologies. So you only know one ideology. It's the same thing as with Christianity, where in a lot of pastors will tell you, well, the Hindus are all going to go to hell, even though they only know one ideology. They never had Christianity migrate to them like that. So do I believe that the Hindus go to hell? No, I don't. I'm not gonna believe that God's gonna punish people for having lack of access to all the information. So, I have a tough time with that one, which I think kind of comes together with, if you're in China and you have only one way of looking at things, because that's all your government provides you, you're going to have a tough time understanding other countries' ideologies, because you think it only goes this direction. But in fact, there's many different ideas out there.
Well, when you take countries and you segregate them and they're not allowed, you have strict rules. Like I've been in China, they don't have any access to any Google platforms, no Gmail, no Facebook, any of that. So but
Correct.
a lot of Chinese have come up with their own IP addresses, and so they have access to other countries and what's going on in other countries. So it gives them a broader look on life. But for some people who just rely on mainstream media, these are the people that don't even know that other ideologies, or they have
Right.
no clue what's going on in other cultures. And that's what I'm trying to say.
Right. And when you put it into that perspective, Jennylyn, you also have the tech algorithms will separate you as to what you are exposed to by your ideology. So TikTok is really, really good at it. They'll say, well, if you're a conservative minded person, we're only going to match you up with conservative minded videos. We're not even going to let you really come over on the other side and talk to the other parties. And so they do segregate beliefs and ideologies on the social media platforms. So so going back to the whole AI thing, I think that is a problem. That's problematic because at some point we're not going to be able to communicate with each other at all.
Exactly.
And we're not going to understand one side or the other. We're only going to know one ideology. So I see that as being problematic. And I hope that when these techie guys who only think in algorithms, I hope that when they really want to put this together, that they understand that humanity is error-filled. We are an error-filled species, and we are going to get led in directions. And there's just things there are things out there that we need to understand all sides of the spectrum. And I don't want the algorithms to continually segregate our thought processes. That's one thing that I worry about. I like my ability to freely think and to be able to look at things from different angles. And if they take away half my angles, I'm not going to feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Well, I agree with everything you're saying. And sadly, when you take everything you and I have shared here tonight, in summary, it only equates to one thing, maybe two: power and control.
Oh, absolutely.
Of
Absolutely. You're
us.
100%.
And that's the bottom line. And you know what?
Right.
I am sick of it. So I may end up with my head off because I am not going to be silent anymore.
Right. Hey, for those of you who don't know Jennylyn, she might be little, but she's fierce.
Thank you. Great description, Eric, and I own it.
Right. She's like a really angry chihuahua.
I'm actually a lover, but I bite when I have to.
All right, so that pretty much wraps but that pretty much wraps up the show today. I want to apologize everybody for the technical issue. Hopefully the spirit realm will leave me alone next time and I can actually get through an interview. They always interrupt our shows all the time, don't they, Jennylyn?
They don't like Jennylyn. It's nothing to do with Eric. It's me.
Yeah, they don't like
I am
Jennylyn.
too radical for them.
But I want to thank you for coming on the show. I want to thank everybody for jumping in the comment section. There was a lot of comments. I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to cover everything you guys were talking about today, but I wanted to make sure that we got Jennylyn's thought process out there. And for those of you who don't know, Jennylyn is one of the softest hearted people that I know. She's immaculate. She's talented. I love her to death. She's in my inner circle. And so I appreciate everybody in the comments treating her like she's part of our Expendable Show family. And Jennylyn, be safe out there and, stay out of the cold.
Thank you, guys. I've enjoyed it. Thank you for having me, Eric, and have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
I'm out. Peace.